brief, but because you're here, to learn a bit about the history, the whole history of vinyl, that you've all witnessed, some of you longer than others, has been here, rooted here in this site. And I'm fortunate enough to be a part of that. It's a little worrying to me to be in a room full of high enthusiasts. I spend my whole life trying to satisfy you. usually failing. So this is not something I've contemplated in my nightmares. It's very, very worrying also. Perhaps I'm quite proud that one of the records we made, for which we charge, I think, 12 pence, factory price, is going to be put on this splendid equipment here and listened to with pleasure. So we always wondered what would happen to these things that we had to shell out by the million, and by about 50 million a year from here in its heyday. If you'd asked anyone in my day where EMI was, they wouldn't be able to tell you. No local people. It was the Gram. It remained the Gram and still is to some local folk, and the gramophone company. Because Hayes, this place where you are, was founded on it. My mother was born just along the road by the station in 1907, the same year that Madame Nellie Melba laid the foundation stone. I don't think she laid it herself, it's a very big stone, but she presided over the laying of the foundation stone on this site, which was fields. Had been brick fields, I think, in its day. And later she worked in the factory making 78 RPM records. I didn't come into the business to follow her, it was just fairly natural being in Hayes, going to the local technical college, and I became an apprentice here and studied mechanical engineering. This has nothing to do with anything, but it's a lead-up. And so when I finished, there was a choice going to electronics, radar, electric heaters, radios, televisions, or music. Well, music sounded good to me, records, and I chose that path. And very lucky choice, because I landed in the design office at the time, 1960, when 78s was just fading out, and the LP had arrived and was thriving, and everything was very busy. We were converting the old 78 RPM equipment mostly to do the job. Similar, but you can imagine a very, very different technology, much more precision, much more control, much more difficult. Learning very quickly on the hoof, and it was a great time to be there. At that time, there were 14,000 people working on this site. Every morning at 7:30, all over the town, you heard the hooter, said work was to start. And before that, about 15 minutes before that, a huge tide of bicycles came on every road. It's a sight I always remember. I was in the middle of it somewhere. This huge tide of bicycles, no cars, just swept into Hayes, into this site. 2,500 of those people were working, making, dealing with records. And that was not only the only thing. I have no script, so I might hesitate a bit. Not only was this a centre of production, it was a centre of research and development. The vinyl format had been imported from the States, as you know, from CBS for the 12-inch and 7-inch RCA, and the technology had been transferred to some extent, but materials had to be developed and made and supplied in this country, and we had a large development laboratory, a large central research laboratory doing work here. But also, this site became the hub of a network of some, I think in the end, 24 countries where factories were planted. All the equipment, machinery is all specially made. It was all made here in the workshops, in the engineering workshops. It was designed here. The factories were designed here. People from here went out and planted them and built them. So this was a huge international business. Throughout South America, Scandinavia, Europe, all the Commonwealth, wherever there was a pink dot on the map, you could reckon there would be an EMI factory. And even one in Beijing, Peking as it was then, which is probably still there, but rather different today. The research laboratories here were very, very effective. They were very big, and from them, as you know, probably came the stereo group system that we use today, with its 45-degree angles. From them came radar, some of the airborne radar used during World War II came from here, and more recently the CT scanner was also developed, invented here. So, very important site. And it seems strange that between my mother's life and mine, it's come and it's gone. But thanks to cathedral properties, it's at least something's going to live on, and I'm very grateful for that. You'll all be interested in quality. Quality is something that's been the forefront of my life. We had in EMI, we were very fortunate to have a very large classical catalogue, and it tried us, I can tell you, it tried us hard. I was telling someone earlier, there's a record of Beethoven sonatas by Daniel Barenboim, I think it's number 9. And I think the last I heard there were 50 odd masters cut, because each time the metalwork failed and failed and failed through little problems of clicks and pops. And I don't think we ever, it was so famous, I knew the number, I knew the catalogue number, the stamper numbers, everything. But I say that to illustrate that it's a marginal business, the vinyl business. We're only ever just making it, because it's analog. We can't put in error detection and correction. It's just there. A huge amount of work was done on processes, cleaning them, making them pure, making everything consistent. From here, engineers went out all the time to make sure that everything was the same throughout the world. We had a huge manual that was slavishly put together. Everything was there, how to make a record. Brilliant, brilliant really thing. And so that quality would be consistent. During my time, I became responsible for all the plants around the world, and we'd have meetings annually of the managers and technical experts, and we'd talk about quality problems. And there was always one face at the table who, impassive, when we talked about our problems. It was the man from Japan. Say to the Americans, do you have problems? I said, well, yeah, but we send them back, we say or return, we just ship it back. We don't worry, we just give them another one and another one and another one. Say to the Germans, we don't have many problems, but we do have some. the Japanese, oh, they're very quiet. What do you think? And you say, oh, no problem, no problem, no problem. 0.1% or something ridiculous. And eventually I went out to find what this mystery entailed, how this was so. Were they telling us the truth? Was it real? And I remember to this day going into the factory, beautiful place with Toronto in the background, and going very clean, of course, only factory, and standing there, and there were the machines made here, being sent out. Were they different? No. Looked at all the processes, nothing different. All was to the book. And while we were there, some music was playing on the tannoy, and then the music stopped, and there was an announcement, and there were some presses here and some presses there, and in groups, and all the people stopped work and stood in little groups. They had sashes, red and green. And the announcement came, and this group here, with the red sash, all bowed, and the others applauded. And I said, well, what's happened? The red group have the quality award today. Now, I could never imagine my press operators wearing sashes, bowing. No, it was just, and you know, Japanese have consistently made very, very good, very good pressings. But I hope we made many good ones. We finished up making, I think, around 250,000 a day. Can't listen to them all, but you can see, and one of the amazing things, and maybe you found this out yourself, but our press operators and the ladies who check the records could hold a record up to a good light, spin it, and see a defect that was perhaps 2/1000 of an inch in size by just the pattern, And I've seen them do it, and I think they would have fun with me when I walked around and say, look at this fault. I couldn't see a thing. Of course, it's just you can very practice, but that's the only inspection we could do except sampling. And of course you can't sample that many records, you can only sample one in 100 or two. So that's, please remember that when you play these on vinyl. I did go to Philips when the compact disc was introduced, and Philips wanted everyone to take it on. And they flew me out to Eindhoven and gave me some discs and a player, which I brought back to the EMI here. Gave it to our technical people in the research laboratories. I was very excited by this, because I thought, no more clicks and pops. I can rest easily. And our research people said, forget it, it's rubbish. 16 bits, it is rubbish. We're not going to do it. And EMI made a decision not to take it up. And they were 4 or 5 months behind everyone else before marketing people, of course, could see that it had to be. But there were, during that time, a number of certainly classical enthusiasts who were saying, no, this is the answer to our dreams. We never thought it was, and I'm sure you don't think it was. And I'm still in love with vinyl. It's a wonderful thing to work with and in. I know you've had talks on how it's made and what it's made, but when you consider it's a piece of plastic that's very closely related to the PVC on your drain pipe, a little cleaner, a bit more pure, but it's basically the same material with just a little bit of additive and a lot of care. I think that's going to have to keep you, but I hope you enjoy Pink Floyd, and I think you'll agree it's quite a good pressing.